My name is Irfanahsan and I am a civil engineer and a professional wedding and portrait photographer. I have a master's in civil engineering from University of Texas at Austin, and I've been pursuing this photography as a hobby since I was in US, and then when I moved back to Pakistan in 2011 I've been doing it full time. I am official Canon brand ambassador in Pakistan, and I am very proud of the fact. Today, I've been planning to talk about lenses. So, over the course of years, I've done many training sessions, I've done lots of mentorship, I've trained people, I've taught classes, and I think it's time now for me to pass on this knowledge to a wider audience, and I'm using my YouTube channel for that. I've had YouTube channel since 2005, and not many people knew about it, what YouTube was in 2005, but I never really paid attention to it. But I think I'm ready for the YouTube world now. So today we're going to be talking about lenses, what makes a good lens. Lenses are my favorite tool in my camera bag, and a lot of time people says, "Oh, that's a great picture. You must have a really good camera." And I tell them, "No, that is not a fact. It is the lens that makes the picture. It is the lens that makes the image. You can have a decent camera and a great lens, the image will still turn out to be great. And if you just have a great camera and a bad lens, the image is just going to be normal. Nothing outstanding. So that's a very important consideration when you're picking the gear for your photography hobby or profession. So there are two specs for a lens: the focal length and the aperture. So what do we mean by focal length? Focal length is how wide the view of the camera is, and focal length ranges all the way from 4 mm, even like wider, or all the way up to 800 mm. So coming from my perspective, how I like to give an analogy is, if you're standing in front of a stage and you want to capture all the people in the frame, then you're going to use a wide angle lens, a 24 mm lens, just to give you an idea. But then if you want to focus on the ring ceremony and you just want the rings or hands in focus, then you're going to use a telephoto lens, so 100, 105 mm or 200 mm, etc. etc. So focal length defines how wide the view is, and then the aperture. Aperture is the opening of the lens. So each lens, it has um, a hole inside it, and the wider the hole can open, the more light sucking capability the lens has. So if you look through these lenses, I don't know if you can see that from here or no, but these lenses have diaphragm inside it, and when you close down the diaphragm, you control the amount of light entering the lens. The bigger the diaphragm or the wider the hole, the more light the lens lets in, and that allows you to shoot in low light conditions, which is what I really like. And it also gives a nice background blur to the pictures. So that if you see my pictures, ever since I moved back to Pakistan, there's the hallmark of my picture has been smooth, creamy background, and ability to shoot in low light. So the scale on these lenses, the aperture scale, as we like to call it, it ranges from 1.2, f 1.2, 1.4, all the way to f32. So what do we mean by f 1.2? It is, I think, if I believe, it is the hole or the diameter of the opening of the lens over the focal length in mathematical terms. But all you need to know is that f1.2 means that it's a large diameter lens. It's an expensive lens. It's a low light lens. It lets you shoot in low light, and it is great for portraits because it blurs the background smoothly. We'll talk about the depth of field in the coming classes, but today this is just a trial run for my YouTube channel. I'll probably redo this session as well. So the defining characteristics of a good lens or a lens are the focal length and the aperture. I like to shoot with low light lenses. I don't want to be shooting in too much strobe light or flashlight. So those are the lenses that are really expensive. So besides this, there are other two there's another characteristic of lens. A lens can be either a zoom lens or a prime lens. Now, what do we mean by zoom lens? Zoom lens is a lens that allows you to change the focal length. So this is a Canon 24 to 105 mm lens, f4 aperture. And what does that mean? When I started photography, I had no clue. I just ordered something off of eBay and I was totally blind. I don't want you guys to do that. So 24-105 means that this lens can let you use the wide angle lens, but if you want to zoom in onto something, you don't need to move, back and forth. You can do that while being stationary. And the aperture or the widest opening that this lens has is f4. I like to shoot lenses that have aperture of 1.2, 1.4, or even lower, like f.95. And so this lens goes from 24 to 105 mm, and what that means is you can have 24 mm focal length, 35 mm focal length, 50 mm focal length, 70, 85, 105. And this is a dedicated 85 mm focal length, or we also like to call them as primes or fixed lenses. The advantage of using a fixed 85 mm lens over a zoom lens is that they allow, or the lens design makes it possible to have a wider aperture. Somebody might ask, okay, if you get the same focal length in the zoom lens, why would you need this? Well, this is a jack of all trades. This is what I would like to carry if I want to travel light. The image quality, it's not too, it's not something extremely important to me. But whenever I'm wanting to have that wow factor or that pop to my images, I always pick a prime. This is more expensive than the zoom lens, even though it is just one focal length, which is also found in this lens, but the defining factor is the aperture. This is a f1.4 lens, this is f4 lens. So f1.4, and then f2, and then 2.8, and then 4. So this lens allows you to shoot into 8, even if there is 8 times less light. This, we'll talk more about this. This is going to get a little bit complicated for you. But from each notch of the f-stop, the light doubles or halves. So the difference is 1.2, 1.4, then f2, then f2.8, then f4. So there's 4 notches difference, and 4 times 2 is 8. So this lens will let you shoot in 8 times less light as compared to this. But the disadvantage is that you'll have to move back and forth, and you don't always have room to do that. So if I'm in this room and I want to cover the whole of the wall in front of me, I'll be able to do that with this lens, not with this lens. But if I want to shoot in low light in this room, I can do it with this lens. If I want to blur the background, I can do it with this lens. Besides these, there are other characteristics like image stabilization. Lots of these lenses have image stabilization in them. So if you're shooting in low light and you shoot using low shutter speed, these lenses have built-in image stabilization, and they counter the movement of your hand to make sure that the images still look sharp. So these are the two main characters. Then there's the silent wave motor, or ultrasonic motor, etc., etc. There is nano coating. There are different filters. We'll talk about all of that in the coming sessions. But this is the new background I was planning to use for all my YouTube sessions, and I was setting up my mic, and I just thought of doing one session for you. Let me show you this one. So this is a 300 mm lens. So use the telephoto or the bigger focal length lenses for sports, for using for doing wildlife photography when you can't get too close to action and you still want to get a good picture. That's the lens you use. But if I'm going for you would say landscape photography, I'm going to use a wide angle lens. And then you can also use wide angle lenses, prime lenses. So I'll probably carry a 24 mm f1.4 and a 35 mm 1.4. I would prefer to carry 4 to 5 lenses instead of just carrying this one. But you can't always do that. There's weight restriction, there's mobility restriction, etc., etc. When you're going hiking, you can't have too much weight on you. So you have to consider all these factors. Besides the prime lenses, they have better glass, they have better contrast, they have better color rendition, they are sharper. So I am a prime guy. That's what I like to call myself. So stay tuned, guys. Inshallah, I'll be talking more about different types of glasses, or the flaws that different lenses have. Why would I pick one lens over another for what kind of shooting assignment? So there's more to it than just focal length aperture when you're picking a lens. There's the bokeh, which is the background blurring quality. That's I'm really particular about. I don't want a noisy background. I want smooth, creamy background. So we'll talk about all these in the coming sessions. But make sure you subscribe to the channel and you hit the bell icon so you can stay updated. And inshallah, I'll be sharing more of my knowledge. Thank you, guys.